How did Cleopatra, a queen in a world ruled by men, manage to pull off daring feats while Rome breathed down her neck? Was it her perfume, announcing her arrival from miles away before she was even close, or her scandalous love affairs with Rome's most powerful men that branded her a seductress? Here are 20 shocking things Cleopatra did you won't believe. Cleopatra's entrance into Julius Caesar's presence is one of the most daring and iconic moments in ancient history. In 48 BCE, Cleopatra found herself in a precarious position. Her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII, whom she was forced to co-rule with, had turned against her. With Alexandria under siege and her life at risk, Cleopatra needed a bold move to gain Roman support and reclaim her throne. Knowing that Julius Caesar had arrived in Alexandria, she orchestrated an audacious plan. According to ancient sources like Plutarch, Cleopatra had herself smuggled into Caesar's quarters by being rolled up in a carpet, though some historians argue it might have been a linen sack. Whatever the true material, the image of Cleopatra emerging from a tightly bound package in Caesar's presence has become one of history's most legendary scenes. This wasn't just a desperate attempt to meet the Roman leader. It was a calculated act of political theatre. Cleopatra understood the power of spectacle and charisma, and she used both to her advantage. Her entrance reportedly captivated Caesar. Cleopatra, known for her intelligence, charm, and political acumen, wasted no time. She presented her case, likely highlighting her rightful claim to Egypt's throne and offering an alliance that would benefit Rome. The encounter not only won Caesar's favour, but also set into motion a relationship that would change the course of Egyptian and Roman history. With Caesar's support, Cleopatra would later be restored to power, solidifying her status as Egypt's queen. This bold, calculated move proved Cleopatra's mastery in navigating political landscapes and solidified her place in history as one of its most daring rulers. Had a romance with two of Rome's most powerful men. Cleopatra's relationships with Rome's most powerful men were more than romantic. They were strategic alliances crafted to secure her power and Egypt's future. After winning the favour of Julius Caesar and bearing him a son, Caesarion, Cleopatra's influence expanded beyond Egypt. Her relationship with Caesar wasn't merely personal, it was a calculated political manoeuvre that strengthened her position as queen and provided Egypt with protection against rival threats. Following Caesar's assassination in 44 BCE, Cleopatra turned her attention to Mark Antony, one of Rome's most influential leaders. Their first meeting in 41 BCE was nothing short of spectacular. Cleopatra arrived in Tarsus aboard a golden barge adorned with purple sails, dressed as the goddess Venus. She reclined beneath a canopy, with servants fanning her and burning incense. Antony was captivated by her entrance, and Cleopatra ensured that every detail projected power and allure. Their relationship quickly deepened, becoming both a romantic and political partnership. They had 3 children together and forged an alliance that aimed to challenge Rome's growing dominance. Antony granted Cleopatra territories and recognized Caesarion as Caesar's legitimate heir, further solidifying her influence. However, their bond was controversial and scandalous in Rome. Roman propaganda painted Cleopatra as a seductress who had ensnared Antony, leading him astray from his Roman duties. Their union culminated in the famous Battle of Actium in 31 BCE, where their combined forces were defeated by Octavian. Facing inevitable defeat, Cleopatra and Antony chose to end their lives in 30 BCE. Cleopatra's relationships with these men weren't merely affairs of passion. They were powerful strategies aimed at preserving her reign and Egypt's independence, even as they ultimately led to her tragic end. Commanded a naval fleet. In 31 BCE, Cleopatra proved that she was far more than just a political figurehead. As tensions escalated between Mark Antony and Octavian, Cleopatra didn't merely stand by her lover's side, she actively took to the battlefield. Cleopatra commanded her own fleet during the pivotal Battle of Actium, leading a contingent of Egypt's powerful navy. This was not an era where queens were expected to lead men into war, but Cleopatra shattered that expectation. Historical accounts describe Cleopatra's ships as some of the largest and most formidable on the water, heavily equipped with archers and catapults. While Antony's Roman forces clashed with Octavian's fleet, Cleopatra's presence was more than symbolic. She positioned her fleet strategically, showing military acumen that defied expectations of her gender and status. But the battle turned disastrous when Octavian's forces began to overwhelm Antony. Facing defeat, Cleopatra made the fateful decision to retreat, her fleet fleeing through a gap in the enemy's line. Antony, seeing her departure, abandoned his forces to follow her. This retreat has been viewed by some historians as an act of betrayal, while others argue it was a tactical withdrawal to preserve Egypt's strength. Whatever the motive, it marked the beginning of the end. Octavian's victory at Actium would seal the fate of Cleopatra and Antony. Yet Cleopatra's bold leadership at sea remains a testament to her courage and willingness to defy traditional roles in defense of her empire. Master of languages and culture. Cleopatra wasn't just known for her beauty or political alliances. She was one of the most educated rulers of her time. She reportedly spoke at least 9 languages, including Egyptian, Greek, Hebrew, and Arabic. This linguistic prowess was more than a scholarly achievement. It was a vital tool that allowed her to navigate Egypt's complex political landscape. She was the first Ptolemaic ruler to learn the Egyptian language, endearing her to the local population and establishing herself as more than a foreign ruler. Her mastery of culture extended beyond language. Cleopatra immersed herself in the religious and political traditions of Egypt. She participated in sacred ceremonies, portrayed herself as the goddess Isis, and commissioned art that depicted her in traditional Egyptian style. When meeting with foreign leaders, Cleopatra could effortlessly switch between languages and customs, charming her allies and disarming her enemies. One famous instance was her negotiation with Julius Caesar, where her fluency in Latin allowed her to engage with him directly and personally. Cleopatra's linguistic and cultural skills weren't just academic achievements, they were strategic tools that allowed her to wield influence across multiple spheres. By bridging cultural divides, she solidified her position as a ruler who truly belonged to the land she governed, making her reign one of the most politically adept in Egyptian history. May have orchestrated sibling rivalries and deaths. Cleopatra's rise to power was not without ruthless decisions. The Ptolemaic dynasty was notorious for its deadly family politics, and Cleopatra was no exception. After her father, Ptolemy XII, died in 51 BCE, Cleopatra ascended the throne alongside her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII. However, their co-rule quickly descended into rivalry. Historical accounts suggest that tensions escalated into open conflict, with Ptolemy XIII eventually attempting to oust Cleopatra. The civil war that followed saw Cleopatra align with Julius Caesar, resulting in a brutal battle in Alexandria. Ptolemy XIII drowned in the Nile while fleeing the battlefield, his death eliminating Cleopatra's primary rival. But the deaths didn't end there. Cleopatra later co-ruled with her other brother, Ptolemy XIV, though historical speculation suggests she may have orchestrated his mysterious death around 44 BCE to secure her son, Caesarion's claim to the throne. Even her half-sister, Arsinoe IV, was not spared. Exiled after the Alexandrian War, Arsinoe was later executed on Cleopatra's orders, a move believed to have been motivated by fear that Arsinoe might challenge her authority. While ancient historians like Cassius Dio and Plutarch offer differing perspectives, the common thread is clear. Cleopatra was a ruler who understood that power in her world often came at a deadly cost. Whether these deaths were acts of political necessity or calculated cruelty, they reveal a queen willing to eliminate any threat to her throne. Cleopatra's ambition was matched only by her determination to survive, even if it meant turning against her own blood. Dressed as the goddess Isis. In ancient Egypt, pharaohs were viewed as living gods, but Cleopatra elevated this belief to another level by aligning herself with Isis, one of Egypt's most revered deities. From the early years of her reign, Cleopatra purposefully embodied Isis, the goddess of motherhood, magic, and fertility. This was not a casual association, but a calculated political move to secure her authority and deepen her bond with her people. Historical records suggest that Cleopatra would often appear in grand public ceremonies dressed as Isis. She wore flowing garments, elaborate jewelry, and distinctive headpieces, all designed to mirror the goddess's iconic image. These public displays were more than religious rituals. They were strategic performances meant to reinforce her divine connection. One notable instance was during a major festival in Alexandria, where Cleopatra emerged dressed as Isis, blessing her people and invoking the goddess's favor upon Egypt. Such moments cemented her image as not just a ruler, but a living deity. By portraying herself as Isis, Cleopatra claimed divine right and protection. This alignment also set her apart from previous Ptolemaic rulers who were often viewed as detached foreigners. Cleopatra's deep embrace of Egyptian culture, symbolized through her devotion to Isis, strengthened her political position and won her admiration from her subjects. It wasn't just theatrics, it was a masterstroke of political strategy that allowed her to wield both earthly and divine power. Hosted extravagant and over-the-top banquets. Cleopatra's reputation for extravagance was legendary, and nowhere was it more evident than in her lavish banquets. These events were more than displays of wealth. They were political power plays designed to captivate allies and intimidate rivals. One of the most astonishing tales involves her wager with Mark Antony, where she claimed she could host the most expensive feast in history. To prove it, Cleopatra orchestrated a spectacle that has echoed through the centuries. During the feast, she removed one of her priceless pearl earrings, estimated to be worth a fortune. She dropped it into a goblet of strong vinegar, allowing it to dissolve, and then drank the mixture. This wasn't just an ostentatious act of wealth, it was a display of absolute power, showing that she could afford to destroy something of immense value on a whim. Roman historians like Pliny the Elder recorded this moment as a testament to Cleopatra's audaciousness. Her banquets were known for their opulence. Exotic dishes, rare wines, and lavish entertainment set the scene for discussions of power and politics. These gatherings weren't mere indulgences, but opportunities to influence Rome's elite and solidify alliances. Cleopatra understood that politics often unfolded around dining tables, and she wielded her wealth as both a weapon and a statement of dominance. Poison experiments on prisoners. One of the darker legends surrounding Cleopatra involves her fascination with poisons. Ancient sources suggest that she conducted lethal experiments on condemned prisoners, testing a variety of toxins to understand their effects. This grim curiosity wasn't born of cruelty, but of strategic concern. Cleopatra wanted to master the art of poisons, both for potential assassinations and for choosing the least painful method of her own death if defeat became inevitable. According to some historical accounts, Cleopatra experimented with plant-based toxins, animal venoms, and concoctions of deadly minerals. She studied their effects firsthand, observing which poisons acted quickly and which caused prolonged suffering. Her ultimate goal was to identify substances that were effective and discreet. The knowledge gained from these experiments would later shape her infamous suicide, where she allegedly chose death by asp bite, a method she believed to be swift and relatively painless. This dark chapter of her rule also reflected her desire for control. Cleopatra was determined to master every element of her power, even the means of her death. The experiments, though gruesome, were part of her broader strategy to remain in command of her fate. In a world where betrayal and assassination were common, Cleopatra's understanding of poisons was both a defense and a potential weapon. It was a grim but pragmatic approach to survival in a ruthless political landscape. Fashioned a deadly snake suicide. Cleopatra's death in 30 BCE remains one of history's most haunting and debated legends. Following the fall of Alexandria and Mark Antony's tragic suicide, Cleopatra faced a devastating choice. Octavian, Rome's rising power, intended to parade her through the streets of Rome as a conquered trophy. But Cleopatra, known for her pride and determination, chose death over humiliation. According to ancient sources, she orchestrated a final act of defiance, arranging for an asp, a venomous Egyptian snake, to be smuggled into her private chambers, concealed within a basket of figs. The accounts describe Cleopatra allowing the serpent to strike her, delivering a venomous bite believed to have been swift and fatal. Her servants, loyal until the end, reportedly discovered her body alongside the lifeless forms of her two closest attendants. Some say that Cleopatra greeted death with calm acceptance, dressed in her royal finery, lying gracefully on a golden couch. This scene became immortalized in art and literature as the ultimate act of dignity and autonomy. However, the exact details of Cleopatra's death remain contested. Some historians argue that the ASB story was Roman propaganda, crafted to portray her as both exotic and tragic. Others propose she might have ingested poison or used a concealed blade. Regardless of the method, Cleopatra's death symbolized her refusal to be conquered in life or legacy. She chose her ending, preserving her dignity and avoiding the humiliation of being paraded through Rome. This powerful final act solidified Cleopatra's place in history as a queen who controlled her destiny, even in death. Created her own perfume empire. Cleopatra's influence extended far beyond politics and warfare. She also crafted an empire of scent. In ancient Egypt, perfume was more than luxury. It symbolized status, divinity, and power. Cleopatra is believed to have owned and operated prestigious perfumeries, personally overseeing the creation of fragrances that became synonymous with royalty and seduction. Her involvement was hands-on, shaping not only the scents themselves, but the cultural significance they carried. Archaeological discoveries in Mendes, an ancient Egyptian city famed for its perfumes, suggest Cleopatra played a key role in crafting these luxurious scents. These perfumes were made from exotic ingredients: myrrh, frankincense, jasmine, and rare resins sourced from across the Mediterranean. Cleopatra was known for her meticulous selection of these ingredients, ensuring that her perfumes carried an aura of mystery and allure. One enduring tale tells of Cleopatra scenting the sails of her royal barge so powerfully that the fragrance announced her arrival long before her ship reached shore. This wasn't just an indulgent act, it was a calculated statement of power and seduction. The lingering scent symbolized Cleopatra's presence, leaving an impression on allies and adversaries alike. Through her mastery of fragrance, Cleopatra turned perfume into a political tool, reinforcing her image as an untouchable and divine queen. Developed elaborate beauty rituals. Cleopatra's beauty was legendary, but it was far from effortless. Historical accounts suggest that she followed elaborate beauty rituals, crafting an image that would captivate all who saw her. One of her most famous practices involved bathing in donkey milk. These baths, steeped in historical lore, were believed to preserve her skin's softness and youthfulness. The lactic acid in the milk acted as a natural exfoliant, maintaining her skin's radiant glow. Her beauty routines extended well beyond luxurious baths. Cleopatra is said to have applied honey masks to moisturize her skin, believing in honey's natural healing properties. She also reportedly used gold-infused masks at night, a ritual believed to rejuvenate her complexion and enhance her allure. Essential oils, extracted from rare flowers and spices, were used for both fragrance and skincare, symbolizing both sensuality and status. Cleopatra's makeup routines were equally meticulous. She crafted dramatic eye looks with crushed minerals, creating the bold, coal-lined eyes that became an iconic part of her image. Even her lip color was crafted with crushed beetles to achieve a vibrant red hue. These rituals were not simply about vanity, they were a form of political strategy. Cleopatra understood that beauty was power. Her carefully curated appearance elevated her status and reinforced her image as the living embodiment of a goddess. Through these rituals, Cleopatra controlled not only her own appearance, but also the perceptions of those around her. Her beauty became a symbol of her power, ensuring that her image, much like her legacy, would endure long after her time. Attempted to devalue Rome's economy. Cleopatra's influence over Egypt's vast resources was a powerful tool in her political strategy, and some ancient accounts suggest she wasn't afraid to use it to disrupt Rome's economy. In the late 40s BCE, amid the complex tensions between Egypt and Rome, Cleopatra allegedly sought to weaken Rome by manipulating the grain trade, Egypt's most valuable export. Grain was not just a staple food, it was a lifeline for Rome's masses, and its availability directly impacted political stability. Historical speculation suggests that Cleopatra, recognizing Rome's dependency on Egyptian grain, may have deliberately delayed shipments or flooded the market to create economic instability. By controlling the supply, she could influence grain prices, potentially causing scarcity that would lead to social unrest in Rome. Though Roman historians like Plutarch and Cassius Dio do not directly accuse Cleopatra of this economic tactic, there is evidence that grain shortages during her reign led to tension and political leverage. This move was a bold assertion of power. Cleopatra understood that controlling resources meant controlling influence, and Rome's dependency gave her significant leverage. Whether this was a calculated strategy or a consequence of broader political struggles, it highlighted Cleopatra's willingness to use economic influence as a weapon in the complex power dynamics between Egypt and Rome. A mix of perfume and opulence that surrounded her arrival. This wasn't mere vanity. Cleopatra understood that appearances shape perception. By presenting herself as a living goddess, she believed in divine reincarnation. For Cleopatra, ruling Egypt was not just a matter of politics, but of divine destiny. She believed herself to be the living reincarnation of the goddess Isis, a powerful and deeply respected figure in Egyptian religion. This belief wasn't merely spiritual, but a strategic assertion of her divine right to rule. From the early years of her reign, Cleopatra embraced the image of Isis. She participated in religious ceremonies, commissioned art depicting herself as the goddess, and even aligned her political decisions with the traditions associated with Isis. By presenting herself as a divine figure, Cleopatra secured a deeper connection with her subjects, who revered Isis as a symbol of motherhood, fertility, and protection. This divine association wasn't just for the Egyptian populace. Cleopatra also used it to enhance her political leverage with Rome, portraying herself as a ruler chosen by the gods and deserving of respect and power. In doing so, she distinguished herself from her Ptolemaic predecessors, many of whom were seen as foreign rulers disconnected from Egyptian culture. Cleopatra's belief in her divine reincarnation was both a personal conviction and a political strategy. It reinforced her authority, elevated her status, and made her reign synonymous with divine power. For Cleopatra, to rule Egypt was to embody its gods, ensuring her legacy would be eternal. Used alchemy and early science. Cleopatra's fascination with knowledge extended far beyond politics and power. She was also captivated by early forms of science, particularly in the realms of alchemy and medicine. While the ancient art of alchemy is often linked to the mystical pursuit of turning base metals into gold, Cleopatra's interest was more pragmatic and personal. She is believed to have experimented with beauty potions and medicinal treatments, blending early scientific practice with the preservation of her legendary beauty and health. Historical records and later Roman accounts suggest that Cleopatra maintained a personal laboratory where she oversaw the creation of ointments, fragrances, and cosmetic products. Her dedication to beauty was not just vanity, it was part of her political strategy. By cultivating an image of divine perfection, Cleopatra reinforced her status as a living goddess. She is also believed to have experimented with medicinal treatments, combining local herbs, minerals, and animal products to create remedies for common ailments. Some sources even suggest that she corresponded with Greek scholars, exchanging knowledge about chemical compounds and their effects. Cleopatra's pursuit of science was not only about personal luxury, but also about control. Understanding chemistry allowed her to wield influence through medicine, beauty, and possibly even poison. Her interest in alchemy and science reflected a ruler who left nothing to chance, seeking mastery over every aspect of her life and reign. It is said that her experiments laid the foundation for some of the ancient world's most sophisticated cosmetic and medicinal practices. Outsmarted Roman politicians. Cleopatra's reign was defined by her ability to navigate the treacherous waters of Roman politics. At a time when Egypt was vulnerable to Roman dominance, Cleopatra used her intelligence and political instincts to maintain Egypt's independence longer than anyone expected. She formed strategic alliances, first with Julius Caesar and later with Mark Antony, using both personal charm and sharp diplomacy to her advantage. Cleopatra's understanding of Roman politics was exceptional. She knew when to align with power and when to tread carefully. Her relationships with Caesar and Antony were more than personal. They were tactical moves to protect Egypt from Roman conquest. She provided military support when necessary and offered resources that Rome found invaluable. More than that, Cleopatra understood the art of negotiation. She knew how to appeal to the personal ambitions of Rome's leaders, using lavish gifts, political promises, and even her renowned hospitality to win favor. Even in the face of Roman propaganda, which often portrayed her as a dangerous seductress, Cleopatra held her ground. She adapted to shifting alliances and rivalries, ensuring that Egypt remained a key player on the Mediterranean stage. Though her end came with Octavian's rise, Cleopatra had successfully delayed Rome's total domination of Egypt for years. Her political maneuvering showed a level of cunning and strategy that made her one of the most formidable rulers of her era. Maintained a private spy network. Cleopatra's survival in the volatile political landscape of ancient Rome and Egypt wasn't just due to her charm or alliances. It was also thanks to her shrewd intelligence gathering. Some historical accounts suggest Cleopatra maintained a private spy network that kept her informed of developments in Rome and beyond. In an era where information was power, Cleopatra ensured she was always several steps ahead of her adversaries. Her network is believed to have included merchants, diplomats, and even servants embedded in key Roman households. Through these channels, Cleopatra could gather insights on political conspiracies, upcoming military campaigns, and personal rivalries among Rome's elite. This information allowed her to make informed decisions, whether in forming alliances or preempting threats. It is said that her knowledge of Roman politics was so precise that it gave her an edge in negotiations with leaders like Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. One famous example of her intelligence prowess was her swift understanding of Octavian's growing power. As tensions between Antony and Octavian escalated, Cleopatra reportedly used her network to monitor Octavian's strategies, helping her and Antony prepare for the eventual confrontation. Though ultimately unsuccessful, her ability to gather and use information demonstrated her commitment to controlling the political narrative. Cleopatra's intelligence network was a vital part of her power, allowing her to navigate an environment where a single misstep could mean death. In a world dominated by betrayal and shifting loyalties, her mastery of espionage was a critical tool in her arsenal for survival. Pioneered political propaganda. Cleopatra understood that power wasn't just about military strength or political alliances, it was about perception. She masterfully crafted her image through one of history's earliest forms of political propaganda. Throughout her reign, Cleopatra commissioned statues, coins, and portraits that depicted her as both an Egyptian pharaoh and a Hellenistic queen. This dual identity helped her appeal to both the Egyptian populace and the Greek elite, solidifying her rule over a culturally diverse kingdom. Cleopatra's coins, minted during her reign, portrayed her with traditional pharaonic symbols, reinforcing her divine connection to Egypt's gods. Yet, on other occasions, she embraced her Greek heritage, commissioning statues in the Hellenistic style to strengthen her standing among foreign allies. This careful manipulation of her image wasn't accidental. Cleopatra knew that perception was power. By embodying multiple identities, she made herself relatable and authoritative to different audiences, solidifying her position as Egypt's undisputed ruler. Through this calculated propaganda, Cleopatra shaped how history would remember her. Whether as Isis incarnate or a Hellenistic monarch, she controlled the narrative of her reign. This blending of cultural imagery wasn't just artistry, it was political strategy at its finest, ensuring her influence reached every corner of her kingdom and beyond. Survived a murderous political climate. Cleopatra ruled Egypt during one of its most perilous eras, where betrayal and assassination were common tools in political survival. After the death of her father, Ptolemy XII, Cleopatra ascended the throne in 51 BCE, co-ruling with her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII. However, their partnership quickly descended into rivalry, igniting a brutal civil war that threatened her reign. Cleopatra's survival required more than alliances. It demanded sharp instincts and relentless political maneuvering. She famously aligned with Julius Caesar, a calculated move that turned the tide in her favor. After defeating her brother's forces, Cleopatra solidified her power but remained under constant threat. She faced rebellions, coups, and even opposition within her own family. Her sister, Arsinoe IV, actively opposed her and led forces against Cleopatra before ultimately being exiled and executed under Cleopatra's orders. Throughout these trials, Cleopatra proved herself as a master strategist. She quelled uprisings, navigated internal betrayals, and preserved her rule for over 2 decades. A remarkable feat in such a volatile political landscape. Her ability to survive, adapt, and dominate defined her reign and set her apart as one of Egypt's most formidable leaders. Crafted Egypt's final defense against Rome. As Rome's influence grew, Cleopatra fought to protect Egypt's sovereignty. In the final years of her reign, the looming threat of Octavian's invasion forced Cleopatra into a desperate fight for her kingdom's survival. Knowing that traditional military strength would not be enough, she pursued a multifaceted defense strategy involving diplomacy, alliances, and even clandestine escape plans. Cleopatra's alliance with Mark Antony was at the heart of this defense. Their combined forces aimed to counter Rome's growing aggression, leading to the fateful Battle of Actium in 31 BCE. Yet, Cleopatra didn't rely solely on warfare. She engaged in intense negotiation, offering political concessions in hopes of preserving Egypt's independence. Historical accounts suggest she even plotted secret escape routes, preparing for the worst if Alexandria fell. Despite these efforts, Rome's power proved overwhelming. Following their defeat at Actium and Antony's eventual suicide, Cleopatra faced the inevitability of Roman conquest. But even in her final moments, she sought to control her fate, famously choosing death over submission. Though Egypt would fall to Rome, Cleopatra's final stand was a testament to her resilience and unwavering determination to defend her kingdom at all costs.